I know you're in the process of still in the process of unpacking and kind of processing and receiving everything you've probably learned over that past those 2.5 weeks. But like from your understanding now, what's the thing that resonates deepest with you that says like my perspective has shifted or the way I view my life will never be the same? Is there something that you're walking away with already, and it can grow into more, but right now, what's the thing you're left with most?
I would say the biggest thing is there were many times in my life of being a Christian that I let God lead me in my days. So I could go 4 or 5 days and allow God to lead me in my ways. And then I would fall back into my secular view of life of, oh, I have to get this done. I have to make sure this is done. I have to make sure this person's okay, all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying those are bad things, but they were things that I set God aside from and went back to what can I do for the people around me and for my life that benefits me or benefits the people around me. And this was the first time in my life for 2.5 weeks that I let God lead me. And in that time, God showed me many things of who I am and what I have abilities in this world, as in going back to the fivefold ministry of being a pastor or teacher or whatever it may be, is that he showed me that I had confidence on stage. He showed me that I had confidence in teaching people. He showed me that I had confidence in being an evangelist, and like an evangelist, but also within being an evangelist, being able to pastor these people and the issues that they have in their life and the issues that maybe they had questions on in the Bible or in their life of how to let God lead them in their life. And so, I mean, I would definitely say the biggest thing that I took away from it was I need to let God enter my life as much as possible, because what he did for me in Kenya, what he showed me about myself in Kenya, was that I'm much more than what I thought I was.
How do you do that? How do you like let God step into your life, let God lead you?
Constant prayer.
Right.
I woke up at 4 a.m. almost every day I was there, and I would turn worship music on. I would go take a shower listening to worship music. I would literally praise in my room, like in my hotel room, a 10 by 15 room. I would sit there and be like I was in front of a worship band, praising in a massive building, but I was in this tiny room, and I was acting the same way I acted if I was at church. And I would sit there and pray, and I would go in depth about God, like speak through me, God lead me through this ways, God speak to me in a way that I can let these people understand what I have to say to them. And it was a constant thing that I did. It wasn't just like I did it once or twice while I was there. It was what I did every single day.
Yeah.
And when I got to the church every morning, I would pray while they were worshiping. I would go to the side and I'd be praying, and I'd be yelling out to God because their worship music is so loud. That I could yell, and I could say, I could just drop down to my knees wherever I wanted, and I had no embarrassment in me about anything I did for God in that moment. And I think here in America or here in anywhere around the world, people can feel embarrassed about the things that they do in front of other people for God. And this was a time for me that I was not scared, that I was not worried about what people thought. That's the right word. And I mean, it was like those kind of things that led me to allow God to just work in every moment that I was there. And the things that came out of me when I was speaking, it wasn't me. Like it was not me that was saying the words or giving stories or showing them things to be able to understand what I'm trying to get them to understand, where I would like drop down on my knees and say, this is how I believe Jeremiah was speaking when he was doing these things. It's like I literally dropped on my knees, and Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. And so I would give them a context of what a weeping prophet would actually look like. And I was like, I've never been a weeping prophet. How can I show these people? But God pulled that out of me to give them the example of what that actually is.
I think that's really, really interesting. And I feel like this is a rabbit hole that I could go down for hours. And we're not
Let's
going to
just
do
tease
that
it
right now. Right.
Yeah.
But this idea of like, God can lead you, and the Holy Spirit, like the Spirit can be there. The Spirit is working through us. But like that also takes a lot of action on your part.
Yep.
Right. And who you give credit to, like all that kind of stuff is like your choice, right? Like give it to God, all these things. But like that also took an immense amount of action on your part.
Yep.
And like, and discipline on your part of like, if you're going to wake up and pray and praise and worship and do all these things in your hotel room and then go, like, God's never set an alarm for me to wake up in the morning.
There's a time difference. It might be easier.
Right. But what I'm saying is it still takes a lot from you of like, you can ask, you can seek, you can knock.
Yep.
But like, you actually have to walk through the door.
And I mean, Corey and I talked about this. I don't know. It was after I got back. It was just about the trip. And we were both like, he was saying to me that it's a lot easier in that setting because you don't have the worries of what you're living and what you're doing in your actual
That's
life.
why people go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to relax when you're on vacation, hopefully.
And so at this point, like, I had no worries. I had no thoughts about what I was going to do for work or what I was going to do to benefit myself or how I was going to get through my schoolwork or whatever it may be. I didn't have those worries whatsoever because I was there for a purpose. And so like that was and when you said that, like, that really clicked with me of I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to think about anything, that I could just allow God to be there in my presence. And I know it'd be a lot harder, and I've been doing it since I've been back, of how to allow God to lead me in any way possible. And one of the biggest things that came to fruition from this entire trip that is a very big honor for me is that now I am preaching at my church. I've gotten asked to preach at one of the campuses at my church, it's a very big deal to me. It's a very big honor to have in me. And the pastor that I went with, who's the pastor of my church, he asked me to be a pastor, to pastor his church for a Sunday, which I view that as like, I view the pastor of a church as being the father figure, the head of the church. And for him to allow that confidence in me was a big deal to me. Very, very big deal.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm a little nervous about it. I'm a little skeptical about what I'll say or what I'll do, but I also know that I spoke at a church on Sunday in Kenya. Like, I was asked at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night, or it wasn't even asked. I was told that I was preaching a sermon at a church on Sunday morning at 8 p.m. on Saturday night. And I was like, oh, I have to do that. I have to prepare a message within the next 12 hours to be able to go to this church and speak to them. And and I mean that's the thing. That's another.
What you called out though too is like when you were speaking, when you're on there, you were saying like I was saying things that like were not of me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's part of that. Again, we always, I think especially when we're told to do something, you're supposed to get this expectation. Our default is to say like, well, how am I going to make that happen?
Yeah.
And definitely preparation, study, like those things are very important. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, is like you're going to be successful at your church when you pastor on Sunday and when you lead them, because you'll be prepared. But more than that, it's because being prepared will allow God actually to speak through you.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I think the craziest thing, and I think I could speak this for Taylor as well, is that we're much better spontaneously than anything. Like, we're much better off the cuff of being able to make things happen. And so, like, yes, I'm preparing, and yes, I know I will prepare for this, but at the same time, I bet you $1 million that what I prepare for isn't what's going to be coming out of my mouth. Because God's going to work in that moment like I never expected him to.
Wow.
Come on.
And so, I mean, those are like the main things that I learned being in Kenya, was that, you know, before going on this mission trip, people were saying to me that you're going to learn things about yourself that you didn't know were there. And you were going to learn things that you're going to come back from this mission trip and you're going to be thinking before you go there that you're going to help those people. But what you're actually learning is how you're going to be helping yourself.
Yeah.
And even though I was helping those people, what happened to me at that trip showed me who I'm supposed to be on this earth. And I mean, to me, it was a very powerful moment in my life.
That's awesome.